The chair recognizes Representative Bodie to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to HB 1331. First and foremost, I would say that the Speaker was absolutely correct. The Georgia Department of Labor has had many challenges that we have all had to deal with and help our constituents to deal with, especially during these 2 years of the pandemic. However, I would be voting yes for this legislation only for one reason I'm going to be voting no, is that this legislation does not have a sunset. Being that it does not have a sunset, this bill will affect General Assemblies and also the Department of Labor, the Commissioner, into perpetuity. Now, I just want to give an example of the reason why we need a sunset. We have elections coming up. All of us in this room are going to have to run for re-election. We're going to have every statewide constitutional officer up for re-election, including the governor, including the labor commissioner. And so, with that being said, why does the labor commissioner of future generations of future years have to suffer because this current labor commissioner did not perform his constitutional duties? And I recall last year, SB 156, bipartisan piece of legislation that pretty much every member in this chamber voted for. That was the Labor Chief Officer Bill, basically an oversight bill. An oversight bill to have the General Assembly and also the Governor's Office to have this current Labor Commissioner to report every Monday on how many claims are being filed, how many claims are being paid out, how many appeals have been filed, how many appeals have been heard. Every Monday, this General Assembly and this Speaker of the House would have gotten a report. But the governor vetoed that legislation. And the reason why the governor stated it was an overstep of this General Assembly to basically have the constitutional officer, which is the Department of Labor Commissioner, report to the General Assembly. It's a violation of separation of powers. Executive branch, legislative branch. So I'm trying to find out what changed within a year. I'm trying to find out why on page 3 of SB 156, line 48, section H, this code section shall stand repealed on December the 31st, 2022, unless continued in effect by the General Assembly prior to that date. Why does this legislation not have a sunset? I would vote for this bill if the sunset was December the 31st, 2022. This bill will take away some serious powers from a constitutional officer. One of those powers is to operate the career centers across this state, the one-stop shops. That power will be codified and taken away from the Department of Labor Commissioner. Also, the Department of Labor Commissioner will have to basically transfer any funds that goes into the Unemployment Security Administration Fund on line 50, have the money deposited to the Department of Labor Commissioner, and whenever the governor's designee, who is a political appointee and not an elected official, transfer the money into that designee's account. So we have a federal act that states traditionally across the state, across this country, traditionally the Department of Labor Commission is the one distributing these federal funds. The governor's designee is not elected by the citizens of this state. The governor designee has to answer only to one person, the governor, and not the citizens of the state of Georgia. So I'm going to ask you to vote no, because this is not bad policy at all. We need to have some coverage over this Department of Labor and this labor commissioner, because we all had to pick up the phone and figure out how can we help our constituents when no one from the Department of Labor would pick up the phone and answer the call of the constituents of this state. And we're still answering those calls today, Republican and Democrat. But I'm just asking that we're fair to the next labor commissioner and allow that person to do their job and prove themselves worthy based upon the citizens of the state that vote them into office. I would vote yes if you had a sunset of December 31st, 2022, but I'll be voting no because you don't. Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the well with no questions.